Welcome to For the Love of Books, That Didn't Happen in the Book, a podcast by Lanarkshire Libraries.
Hello, and welcome to That Didn't Happen in the Book. I'm Andrew, and with me, as always, is my good chum, Mr. Kirkland. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
And this month, it's a very exciting time. Is it? No, it's not Christmas. We did sort of briefly talk about our Christmas special, but we feel that this is probably a bit too early for Christmas because really...
Not that you would know that
No.
walking through Tesco and TK Maxx.
Yeah, so that'll probably be next month, which you may not even hear before Christmas, so happy January for that. Anyway, so, this month we are having an Oz special.
Yeah!
No, not the seminal, 90s, 2000 TV show about life in a...
That is such a deep dive and a deep
prison.
cut. No one's going to know what that is.
Yep. No, not that Oz. But Oz, as in the marvellous, wonderful land of Oz.
Not as in the werewolf from Buffy. Not that Oz.
Not that Oz. Many Oz's. And not Oz... I can't think of many Oz. not Oz as in Australia. Because, people say...
Aussie.
The land of Oz.
Yes.
Not that land of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about L. Frank Baum's...
Yes.
Land of Oz, and specifically, that's rubbish. Specifically,
Yes.
Because this is the exciting month where the film of the movie. Let's get this timeline right.
This is
film,
confusing.
The film of the musical of the book, based on the books by somebody else.
Yes.
Of Wicked.
Yeah.
Wicked the movie. So Wicked the movie is out on the 22nd of November, which is next week as we record this, but could be 3 weeks ago by the time you hear it. I have no idea. And so we decided to have an Oz special.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the musical.
Well, this is the plan. The plan is to talk about the musical, the book, the film, but let's be honest, we will diverge into other parts of Oz.
It's a kind of
not the present TV show, the actual Oz.
So we're definitely going to talk about the Frank Baum books.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the Judy Garland film.
Yes.
We'll talk about Return to Oz, which I love, even though it's terrifying. And
we'll just
you will even talk about Go On.
Yes, I will even talk about the book Wicked and The Wiz, which we have to talk about. Mm-hmm. And Andrew might get to that episode of Fame where they all ended up in Oz.
They did, yep. Well, they did, yes and no.
Hallucination or something.
So, lots to unpack.
Yes.
All Oz related. We'll just see where we end up. So, would you like to do an introduction to tell people what we're going on about in case they go... Hang on there, boys.
That didn't happen in the podcast.
Are you even talking about? We don't know any of this. We are millennial, whatever we are, and we have never heard of any of this.
What comes before millennials?
I don't know. What are millennials?
Well, technically, I'm a millennial. Technically, yes,
really?
I checked.
Are you a geriatric millennial? I think you are.
I wouldn't say geriatric.
So I think you are because I'm sure Vicky checked.
It's not the official term, a geriatric millennial, or is it not an elder millennial?
No, I think she's a geriatric millennial. And
well, there's Generation X, there's Generation, you're Gen X,
yes.
There's Baby Boomer.
That's before us.
Oh, that's well before us. There's Millennial and there's...
Gen Y, I don't know, Gen Z, there's a Gen Z.
Oh, is it? Is it Gen Z?
No idea.
Sounds like, an X-Men team.
But I think, you fill time.
The X-Men team that didn't graduate Charles Xavier School, Gen X.
Millennials. Right, let's see.
Right, well, Andrew, because he has the computer at his side, he can research. While he talks about it, I will discuss...
Millennials, 1981 to 1996.
Yeah.
So you're just on the cusp.
Yes, I am.
That makes you a geriatric millennial.
Oh, how dare you.
Yes.
So let's just quickly, my first memory of Wicked, because I hadn't actually seen the musical. I still haven't seen the musical. My very first memory of Wicked is seeing the book. This is a very strong memory. It was in Ottakar's in Glasgow. Now, I was working in Glasgow at the time, and every time I passed Ottakar's, which was my favourite bookshop amongst all the other favourite bookshops, they had a big display in the window of the book Wicked by Gregory Maguire. And it was a very plain looking cover. I remember it being the witch in the front, and it said, the life and times of the Wicked Witch of the West. So I bought it, and of course I read it. Now, I've not read it since, so my memory's a little bit patchy. I remember liking parts of it. Finding the ending a bit disappointing. I also loved how the author just upturned everything you knew about Oz, about its politics, about its society, about the character of, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, as he was called in the original books. I also felt sorry for Elphaba, as she's called in the book. Every time Dorothy's getting closer, and you know how it ends, it just gives it a different spin. On what you know from seeing the film every year on Bank Holiday Monday, because that's when they repeat it. It's always repeated at some point. The only thing I really didn't like about the book was the ending, where the Wicked Witch of the West accidentally sets, was it fire to her broom, and she's waving it, and Dorothy decides to throw a bucket of water on her to sort of put the fire out, and she kills her.
I can't even remember.
It was
the water over it anyway.
It was a really bad ending. That sort of took the original classic ending and sort of changed it slightly. It didn't quite work for me. But then Dorothy brings down the Wizard of Oz anyway, almost accidentally. So I really liked parts of it. I also loved how Gregor Maguire took the animals who could speak, who were helping the witch out, and turned them into an oppressed, society, and oppressed class. And that part of it was more fascinating to me than anything else. The politics around Oz and how this outsider took over, rose to the ranks, of Supreme Commander in a sense, and he had his own secret police. Yeah. Whereas in the film, you see hints of it in certain parts of The Wizard of Oz where he's scary and he's shouting at Dorothy, and you see certain hints of it as well in Return to Oz. But that was the part of it I like, where the wonderful wizard might not be that wonderful after all.
I think in the original Wizard of Oz film, he was just a sort of unlucky shyster that ended up getting blown into Oz in a balloon.
Con artist. Did you say a con artist?
Yeah, con artist. And it was all just smoke and mirrors, whereas Wicked took it and made him much more manipulative.
Yes.
Conniving.
But Andrew, if you think of it, so the wizard sends them all on a quest, Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Lion and the Scarecrow, and at the very end, when they come to collect the reward, he gives them, rubbish. He gives them talent. He gives them, does it not give one of them, a clock cart or something? Rubbish. It's just so stupid. It's like, you don't need bravery. You were brave all along.
Something you would give to children at the end of a treasure
hunt.
I
would give him a slap.
Like rubbish.
Rubbish.
He gives one of them a heart, in the film anyway, he gives one of them a pincushion type heart. And gives one of them a scroll. It says you now have is it intelligence or something?
I mean, that is like a diploma from one of those cracked up colleges that you just, it's like doing a course on Batman history. It's it's really good for a newspaper article, but it's never going to help.
No, don't do a degree in Taylor Swift, people, because it's not going to get you anywhere in life.
Don't summon the Swifties.
Well, I mean, I have lots of respect for her, but, that's not going to get you anywhere in life, is it, really?
A lot of these kinds of qualifications, someone at college they were doing a degree on 60s television, which you've basically got for free.
Which I love.
You know more than anyone, so you don't need a degree. Just ask you.
I mean, my degree's in English, and even that's useless. So,
yes,
it's useless.
How would you say that your degree in English has helped you out over the years?
No, that's not true. It has.
You can put full stops at the end of a sentence.
It has made me more
aware of English,
intelligent in my own mind. I don't know. Well, I mean, it's made me literate and able to write, and
well, that's what the Wizard of Oz gave them: a rubbish diploma, a clockwork heart.
But then the idea behind it was surely that it was already in them.
Yes,
they just needed to find it for themselves.
It's a children's book. Which, a lot of children's fiction, they're very moralistic.
Yeah.
It's like the end of a He-Man cartoon where they all learn a lesson, they all laugh at
Orko.
You're dumb, Orko. They were very moralistic, which is how these things happen. But in the film, I felt let down.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's just stupid. These people go on a quest and then they get nothing from it apart from, they survived the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yes.
It turns out to be quite a nice person after all, if the book's anything to go by.
Well, if you read Wicked.
Yes.
If you go down that route. So, for anybody that's not particularly aware, the book and the musical and the film and etc. of Wicked is the story of the Wicked Witch of the West, played by Margaret Hamill?
Yes, I think
in the original, somebody like that. and
in all her green glory.
in all her green glory. And the book Wicked take her backstory basically, because we know nothing about her in the original other than
She cackles a lot. She has flying
she
monkeys.
has a witch that
and
gets
she
killed
wants
when
red
the house
shoes.
lands on her, and she's wicked, and that's it really. And this takes, you know, their childhood, so it follows Elphaba as she was known in her childhood and teenage years to becoming friendly with Belinda the Good Witch,
Yeah.
as we eventually she turns out to be.
And she's a social climber.
Yes, but obviously that's how they develop her. So she's a social climber. Elphaba's misunderstood. Things conspire against her, and she ends up acting out. But really, she's not really wicked.
No.
It's everything that happens round about her that makes her.
Well, I mean, in
You
the
know,
film,
goes
they drop
against
a
it.
house on her sister, so no wonder
Yes.
she's upset.
Yeah.
And then Dorothy steals her shoes.
Dorothy steals her
Like, if
shoes.
someone stole my shoes, I would not be happy.
Yeah. But then
No one can wear Dr. Martens quite like me. Yes,
No,
I
well,
agree.
yes, So, yes, and that's how they take a very different spin. So, whereas in the original Wizard of Oz, Elpha was just the Wicked Witch is just evil
Yes.
and horrible and nasty and everything else. And Glinda's this syrupy. Wicked takes it and gives it a spin so that they're
As two-dimensional. Yes.
and Glinda's the social climbing sort of mouthpiece, if you like, for the fascist state
Yes.
that Oz is behind. Like we were talking about the animals rising up in the show of Wicked. They have the goat, the teacher at the school, Dr. Dillamond, who's
Yes.
like a goat, a talking goat, and the goats have been able to talk, but think there's a kind of backlash against that, and they don't want them to talk anymore, and all this kind of thing. And then there's a bit in one of the songs where he's singing something like, "Something bad is happening in ours, something bad," and that means that he's, you know, reverting back to just being a goat again, which is such a shame, really.
It's quite
And
disturbing.
I think in the book
The
of
copyright
Wicked,
strike we're about to get for you singing as well.
look, 2 lines. And I think in the book of Wicked, I think Dr. Dillamond gets assassinated. If I remember
can vaguely
rightly.
remember like a shaking animal.
Whereas in the show, he just sort of disappears from the action.
Right, so I've got to ask you this, because this is the whole point of the podcast. It didn't happen in the film, or in this case, in the musical.
Yep.
What is different between the musical and the book? Do they take a lot of liberties apart from that, or do they? Because there's some things in the book, like Oz is Elphaba's father.
So there's a lot of, like, there's hinting at that, but obviously they have to fit it all into a 2.5 hour show. So it's compressed. But there is a scene where it's showing you Elphaba's conception, birth, all this kind of thing, and there is a scene where the mysterious figure comes in and he's like, "Have another drink."
Oh,
to
yes.
the mum. But you don't know who it is at that point. And then, of course, the baby's born and they're like, "Oh, she's green. Oh, no, she's green." No, don't answer because she's green. And then later on in the show, the penny drops that's meant to be the wizard at the beginning.
Yeah.
So the wizard basically drugs Elphaba's mother.
Yes.
And
He's a rotter. He's
impregnates
absolutely
her.
horrible.
Yeah.
And by the end of the book, you're just absolutely rooting for him to get what he deserves, which he sort of does.
Yeah.
For what I remember, by the end of the book, there's an uprising on the Virgin happening. He has to escape. And I can't remember exactly what happens. Is Dorothy sort of brings about his downfall by accident. I think Dorothy discovers something.
Does he not end up going in the balloon just the same?
Probably.
I think he probably does, because I don't think they change it that much. I think they keep the basic structure, but they just flesh it out. The main difference, I think, with Wicked on stage as well is Dorothy's not in it as a character.
No.
So it all happens from, like, Elphaba and Glinda's points of view.
Yes.
And Dorothy is referred to.
Which works, I'm sure.
You see shadows off stage that are meant to be her.
Yeah.
And you see, like, there's a silhouette of her at one point that you know is meant to be her. There's a bit where it's in the witch's castle, where she's telling Dorothy to take off her sister's shoes, where Dorothy's meant to be off stage.
Yes.
And Elphaba's just standing on stage shouting, "Your shoes are feet!"
Yes, and there's an extra in the background, like,
but you never actually see her.
Yeah.
And when the moment when she actually gets the water thrown on her and melts and everything, that's all kind of done in silhouette. So you never actually see
Did you get a
Dorothy.
bucket of water chucked at her?
Oh,
A real
I
bucket?
can't even remember. It's so long since I saw it, but I'm sure it's just all silhouette, and you've got like a big shadow of Dorothy,
Mhm.
and but yeah, but then of course, spoiler alert, she's not really dead
All right.
in the show.
Mhm.
Fierro, who is a kind of love interest, who is killed basically, and he is not dead either. The only way that she could save him was by turning him into a scarecrow.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, him and her secretly survive and go away together at the end.
So the film, of course, is a modern classic. It's
Yep.
constantly shown, constantly repeated.
I mean, not that modern now.
Not that modern,
Like,
but
what,
it's still.
70
This is the
years?
thing. The colour is so vivid. It just
Oh,
looks
yeah.
so fresh. Even now, I still could watch The Wizard of Oz and
Yeah.
not like hate it through familiarity. The musical, huge smash based on the book. I'm assuming it won loads of awards at the Tony.
What, Wicked?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't think it really did.
Oh, dear.
It certainly didn't win Best Musical.
Really?
No,
And yet it's still going though.
Yep, still going. The Best Musical that year was Avenue Q,
Which I get. You know,
Um,
that's quite a big musical as well.
which I think was probably a bit of a surprise because it was Avenue Q is quite a small show in
Yeah.
the sense that it was off Broadway and
It's an adult
and,
show.
and it's an adult show and it's not a big flashy musical and you get, there's not a lot of special effects, there's not a lot of, it's a few puppets and a few adults
Yeah.
wandering about a stage singing. So I think it was probably a bit of a surprise that it didn't win the Tonys.
Who was it up against as
know.
well? Who was Wicked and Avenue Q up against? What musicals?
I don't know, I'm looking. But I think it was a few random things that,
I've never.
it was
Parody
nominated
musical?
for 10 Tonys.
Right.
Including Best Musical and 2 nominations for Best Actress for Idina Menzel, who played Elphaba, and Kristen Chenoweth, who played Glinda. Idina Menzel won Best Actress.
Right.
And it won a couple of smaller awards, but it lost all the rest of the big ones.
Ooh, that's got to hurt.
And the West End production, now I saw it when it started in London
Yes.
with Idina Menzel, came over for the first bit of the run, and which, that was great. It was nominated for lots of awards. I don't remember particularly if it won any Olivier's. Can't remember, but it was very good. And it's now been running, so that was 2003, so 20 odd years in Broadway.
And that ties
15
in
years
with-
maybe in
I would have
London,
been around
more
Glasgow
than that?
working at the time, around 2003, so the book would have been in the window of Otakers
Yeah.
because of the musical. It would
Yeah.
have been because the book was released in 1995.
Yeah. So interestingly, the book, I think, probably didn't take off as a big hit, a big smash hit.
No.
Apparently, it was optioned by somebody to make a live action film of it, and then that didn't come to anything. And
No,
then they decided to
that
make
usually
it into a
happens in
musical.
publishing.
But I don't know that the book necessarily took off in a big way because there's a big gap. It was 8 years or something from the book being released.
And that's how long it took for
to
the musical to get up and running.
And then after the musical was a big hit,
Mhm.
it then got, I think, 3 sequels.
I wonder
after
how
that.
Gregory Maguire reacted when they said, listen, they pitched it, we want to turn this into a musical.
He probably, if they paid him enough money.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, come on. If they came to you and they said, Kirkland, we want to take St. Call the Police.
Turn it
and
into
we
a
want to
musical.
turn it into a musical
in
and we're going to
Falkirk.
pay you £5 million. What would you say? My artistic intent was to...
Well, listen, because Happiness is Wasted on Me was nearly optioned. That was the thing. But I to this day, I still don't know who it was. It was just a company that reached out to an agent at the time. So I have no idea, but it wasn't for a musical. Could you imagine?
Yes. I mean,
A musical in Cumbernauld.
It would be...
So the next part of the Oz story we've got to
Yes.
talk about
Uh-huh.
is a childhood favourite or terrifying
Yes.
ordeal, depending on what perspective.
Yeah.
Return to Oz.
So, original, obviously, was the original book of The Wizard of Oz,
Yes.
which was The Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
As it was titled, by Frank Baum. Who
Don't
then
drink
wrote,
anything he offers you.
No. Who then wrote about a million
tea, don't
novels
touch it. Yes.
after that. Loads and loads. He didn't write a million, but loads of sequels.
Do you remember them in the Children's Library in Cumbernauld?
Not entirely
Library.
sure how many.
Yellow covers.
This tells me he wrote at least 14.
Right.
And then some short stories as well. And after that, other people took over the series.
Right.
And carried on writing them. So there's like 40 Oz novels that follow on.
Caroline Keane is still not bothered because she's got thousands.
So the original film was a big, huge success and everything else. And it took, 30 odd years before they managed to make a sequel. And what they did was quite interesting. They didn't really make a sequel to the original film of The Wizard of Oz.
I'm assuming they couldn't for copyright reasons.
I think so, probably. So what they did was they took elements from Frank Baum's novels and mashed them all together in like a big blender and made the horrific nightmare.
The horror movie for children.
So all the characters were kind of cribbed from different books. So TikTok is in so many books. Jack Pumpkinhead's in books by himself. The Gump. I think Bellina the Chicken is even in them. I read loads of them when I was younger. Ozma, who turns out to be the woman in the girl in the mirror in Return to Oz, was the Queen of Oz, and she was in a load of them as well. Dorothy wasn't in all the books. And there was other kind of protagonists took over.
I mean, let's talk about the start. So from what I remember of Return to Oz, Dorothy's in a mental health clinic.
It starts off with the Uncle Henry still hasn't rebuilt the farmhouse.
How depressing.
After. Well, he hasn't finished rebuilding because obviously the original house is not there because the original house is in Oz, remember? Because it get wrecked. So they built a new house, but it's not finished.
It's the depression.
And it's all miserable. Everybody's all very miserable. It's all very grey and sad. And Piper Laurie plays Aunt Em, who doesn't believe that Dorothy went to Oz. And she keeps saying, it's my friends in Oz. And she says, you have to stop this, Dorothy.
But I wondered if she did actually go to Oz or if that was a hallucination.
Well, it's not really very clear.
No.
And then they decide that they can't cope with this anymore because it's ruining everything with her having all these terrible hallucinations and nightmares and what have you. So they pack her off. They pack her off to a clinic.
Toto.
Right? Yes. Well, no. Toto doesn't go. No.
Doesn't go to the mental health clinic.
No, Toto's only in the beginning of the sequel. So Piper Laurie takes Dorothy and the horse and carriage to the scary sanatorium place. Toto runs after them up across the ground, barking, and she goes, Toto. So then you don't see Toto again till the very end. So she takes it to this terrifying sanatorium where Jean March plays the kind of sinister nurse. And
Jean Marsh is a British acting legend.
Yes, and the guy who later plays the Gnome King plays the horrible doctor.
Yes.
And they take her in and they're going to give her an electroshock treatment.
I mean, can you imagine?
We're just going to give you a little shock, Dorothy, and all these terrible nightmares are going to disappear.
Oh my goodness.
So, that happens. And then the clinic, then she starts to see a girl in the mirror.
Yes.
She can't understand. I want to say she finds a key at one point.
I'm pretty sure she does.
There's a key to Oz. I think she finds that in the farm before she goes. There's a big storm and the sanatorium place gets hit by lightning.
Yes.
And the girl in the mirror helps her escape. And she escapes and then ends up in the water and stuff like that and loses the girl. And then she wakes up and she's been washed up on a shore. And she doesn't understand where she is. I'm basically telling you the whole plot here. She wakes up on the shore. She doesn't know where she is. It's this strange land that she doesn't know where she could be.
Yes.
And then she realises she's in Oz.
Except her friends are dead.
Well, they've been turned into stone.
Yes.
And so it's like a post-apocalyptic, I'm saying nothing, but
yes.
It could be up for our time.
Yes, it could be
dystopian post-apocalyptic Oz. When she gets to Oz this time, she comes across her chicken from home.
Oh
Bellina,
my goodness!
Who has got the voice of Mary Lazarus out of Sister Act. Who she goes, Bellina, how did you get here? And she goes, I don't know. And she says, she does a lot of that. because she's really horrible. And yeah, so she doesn't have Toto in Return to Oz. She
Right.
has Bellina the talking chicken.
Yes, Toto got dumped
Ludicrous.
for the check-in.
So she makes her way. She finds the Yellow Brick Road all in rubble and all the stones all ripped up, and she can't understand what's happened. And she walks past an old scabby house. She gets to the Emerald City. All the emeralds are gone.
Yes.
It's all stone. They've all been enslaved by the Gnome King and
Yes.
Princess Mombi, who is Jean Marsh again. Everybody's been turned into stone, including the poor old Tin Man and the Lion.
Well, it's nice to see that Oz's gifts to help them came
Yes.
to nothing.
Yeah, they've turned into stone. The women's heads have all been cut off.
That is
Statues.
terrifying.
And put in this weird hall of mirrors
Yes.
so that Princess Mombi can take her head off
Yes.
and replace it with somebody else's. Who thought this was a good idea for a kids' film?
Traumatizing. Can you imagine going to the Cumbernauld cinema and sitting and watching headless women trying to kill you?
So, and then those wheelers. Do you remember the wheelers?
So they basically had wheels
Yeah.
in their hand.
Yes.
The poor actors had to contort themselves into the most bizarre positions
Yeah.
to just make that scene work.
Terrorise her. Then she comes across TikTok,
Mhm.
who is like a big fussy robot,
Very Disney though.
who has to keep getting wound up
Yeah.
because at importune parts of the story, it goes, my motion has wound down, Dorothy. I cannot move. And they do all that. And then they all get thrown in a big tower where she comes across a guy with a giant pumpkin on his head, a wooden man with a giant pumpkin
My
head.
goodness, the fuel of
Yes.
nightmares.
Says to her, will you be my mom? And
No!
they lash together like basically a sort of flying craft out of all the junk that's lying about the attic. And they make a moose's head come to life and they stick it on the front of it and he flies them out. Then they crash land and they end up in the Gnome King's lair where they all get turned into ornaments, apart from Dorothy. It's honestly,
The Gnome King is evil.
if you haven't seen Return to Oz, please watch it because it's the most, but don't let your kids watch it right away.
No.
It's the most bizarre.
But then, is there not a sense to give sort of a little bit of the plot?
Yeah.
The Gnome King took back all the emeralds from Emerald City because they were mines from his mines
That's what
initially.
you seem to remember.
Yes.
I don't remember that.
I
but
remember. I'm sure I remember. There's a sort of
is he
idea that.
did he just want them to steal them?
No, I think they belonged to him and his people in the first
Yes.
place in the Emerald City. They took them and built this beautiful big monument to their
Do you
own
think there's
sort
a
of
bit of
avarice
colonialism
and greed.
there?
Yes, avarice and greed, and
Yeah.
and he took them back. He took
Right.
back all his emeralds. But I can't remember. I just remember him being it's a terrifying confrontation at the
So
end.
he's all rocks.
Yes.
Remember, the rocks all turn into his face.
I
and
remember
he doesn't
Dorothy
like the
goes to
chicken.
confront him.
Yeah. Do you remember where the rock faces see her?
Yes.
And then they go away and they report back to him.
Yeah.
And they say, Dorothy has returned and she has brought a chicken.
Yeah.
And he goes, a chicken?
Like, he's not pescatarian, clearly.
Ridiculous.
Crazy. And I just remember the ending. I remember the whole film just being a phantasmagoric
So
nightmare.
they kill the Gnome King at the end.
Yes.
By Bellina the chicken hatching an egg in his mouth.
Yes.
That makes him basically explode.
He's allergic to, like,
It's so
egg protein.
Bizarre thing ever.
Uh-huh.
And then they all go back to the Emerald City where everything's been restored. The Scarecrow and everybody's back. They're all back, happy, happy, happy. And they're all dancing, because everything's wonderful again.
But the little girl in the sanatorium, it turns out to be...
She turns out to be Ozma,
But,
the true
yes.
Queen of Oz, who's trapped in the mirror, and Dorothy helps her escape.
Yes. But the other thing that we must speak
Yes.
about is that Dorothy is played by Firuza Balk.
Yeah.
Who is Nancy
your-
in The Craft.
Yeah, one of
and
your
an
favourite films.
absolute icon.
Mm.
Years later. Who knew she'd be in multiple classics?
What else, though? Did she give up acting?
No, I think she did a few films, but I think she did that remake of The Craft. She appeared at the very end.
Oh.
We don't talk about that.
No.
We'll just move on from that. So The Wiz is up next. They
Yeah,
did
so
The
The
Wiz.
Wiz,
So
yes.
The Wiz was another attempt at Wizard of Oz musical.
It was, yes.
A less successful
So the
attempt.
interesting thing is that The Wizard of Oz existed as a musical film, but didn't exist. There's a certain pathway that things tend to take.
A yellow brick
And
pathway.
the general path is they make a musical and then they turn it into a film.
Yes.
But back in the old days, that wasn't necessarily what happened. And The Wizard of Oz is one of them, like Calamity Jane, like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which started off as a film.
Well, you look at Hairspray. Hairspray, everyone knows Hairspray is a musical, but the original film was not. It had music in it. It had a good soundtrack. But John Waters didn't make it as a musical, and then someone took it, turned it into a musical, and then they made the film of the musical.
Yeah. But The Wizard of Oz followed that kind of unusual path in that it wasn't a show to begin with; it was a film.
Yeah.
And like, I want to say it was like the 80s before they actually made it into a proper stage musical.
Yes.
Now, as a stage musical, I've seen it a couple of times. I don't think it's that great. But The Wiz was the 70s. So The Wiz came before any other sort of stage version of The Wizard of Oz.
The Wiz was the 70s.
The Wiz was the 70s.
Right.
So The Wiz is a sort of, what would you say, all black?
Yes, it's Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. I'm sure it was by Sidney Lumet. And so this is the thing, I actually haven't seen The Wiz.
Oh, we have to watch it.
Yes, I haven't seen The Wiz because I just heard so many bad things about it. I never really.
So it's insane. It's a sort
1978. But the tagline for the poster is already legendary.
Yes.
The Wiz, the stars, the music. Wow.
Yes.
I mean, how could you not love that?
I know. And it's the same story, but it makes Dorothy older. It makes it like she's in her 20s, I would say, and she's from Harlem.
Wait. Dorothy's meant to be in her 20s in that film?
And The Wiz. Yeah. She's like in her 20s. She's a teacher or something, if I remember right.
Diana Ross in real life.
I don't know what age she was. And it's the same thing, but it was like a sort of, proper full-on African-American cast. So you had Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Richard Pryor, Lena Horne, people like that.
Who did Michael Jackson play?
Michael Jackson was the Scarecrow, if I remember right.
Because it looks like he's wearing sort of vinyl genie pants on the poster.
Yes, he was the Scarecrow.
Right,
yes.
Okay.
It's
the Motown version of the film classic The Wizard of Oz. So it was a Motown version. Oh, the music must be good then.
Yes.
If it's the Motown version.
It's an interesting show. And it's not... I don't really feel as though it really had much of a life over here in the same way. So it was a cultural thing. I
remember going into the Beechwood Road corner shop, and they had a corner of the corner shop that was a video section. Right. You could borrow videos and take them out and return them. And I always remember two things. One, Dead Poets Society. The poster was like constantly in the window. They never changed it for ages. Yeah. And two, The Wiz was never taken out.
There you go.
It's a real shame.
Sad times.
I was like, why does no one want this film?
It was revived a few years ago, just post-lockdowny time when things were starting to get back on the feet. One of the theatres in Manchester revived it, and they did like an online streaming of it as well, and I saw it then, and I quite enjoyed it.
So I saw the poster advertising it, and it's literally the most terrifying poster because the Tin Man looks like the woman from Superman 3 who's turned into a computer.
Now, you're talking about the Wiz Live TV show.
Yes.
So they did
the poster. It's got a little metal face, with things stuck to his face, and he looks like the sister of the millionaire, the computer. Do you remember? It turns her into a robot, and it's really terrifying. And I'm like, why are they trying to make me relive that moment?
So there's something to put on your watch list. We could maybe watch it one time.
We'll get that. And Claire would love it. Claire would love it. Let's get Claire involved.
So it's interesting that all of this kind of came from that initial story. From when did Frank Baum write that? I mean, we're going back. Let's see, 1900. So the first Wizard of Oz story was written in 1900.
But you know what? Good quality children's fiction endures.
And they were getting the movie of Wicked, which, as again was said, starts on Friday the 22nd, which has Ariana Grande as Glinda and Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, and I can't even remember who else. And Jeff Goldblum, I think he's the wizard.
Oh, is he in it?
He's the wizard. I think Michelle Yeoh is the teacher at the school, people like that.
Does Michelle sing in the film?
I do not know. I would assume so. So, what the other thing that they've done, which initially I was a bit like, about, they've split the story into two.
Right,
so it's not a complete film.
Right, so
it's split it into two parts.
Doubling their profits, of course.
So it's a bit like the Hunger Games.
How long does the musical, the stage version last?
It's probably 2.5 hours-ish, slightly more than that with an interval.
They could have made that in one film.
I think they felt that rather than chop lots of bits out. Because obviously a film has to be more expansive and has to show you more backstory. So I think we're going to get more of a backstory when the
More
youth.
of the book,
We're going to
basically.
get more of that. It's going to be, from what I can gather, a lot more faithful to the book. My concern was that if they'd made it into one film, that they would have had to cut out a lot of the songs, which they do in all these musicals. They haven't cut anything out from what I can see. They might have truncated them slightly, but they didn't cut any songs from the first half. And I think they've added stuff into the second half. There's characters like the friends at school who are in the book are not really in the film.
Did we not have, though? Did we not have, well, I mean, Cats was a disaster.
Well, yes.
The CGI
Yes.
horror
Yeah.
fest.
Yeah.
But did they not have a Wizard of Oz film fairly recently with James Franco? Am I making
They
that
had that,
up?
the Oz, the Great and Powerful.
And I remember that because, again,
Yeah.
I mentioned our friend Claire
Mhm.
loved, at one point, James Franco. I don't think she likes him much now.
Yeah.
But I remember her trying to get me to go and see it, and I was just like,
That's
Yeah.
I quite liked it. And then
Okay.
it was on telly again not that long ago, and I tried to watch it and I fell asleep. So you be the judge.
was his version of Oz a benevolent figure?
Well, sort of, but it was a prequel. So it was him in his younger days.
Right, so it's more like
And
the
he
Wizard of Oz
wasn't-
from the original film.
Yeah, and he wasn't. No, it was even younger than that. Though.
Right.
So he wasn't like a villain or
Mhm.
anything. There was a villain. I can't remember. It was Emily Blunt.
Right, okay.
Somebody like that was playing the villain. I just think it's fascinating that we're sitting here 124 years after the original story was written, and people still know. I mean, they don't necessarily know all the different versions. They don't know all the ins and outs. They won't remember the terrifying Princess Mombi.
But
they
the
won't,
image is so strong,
but
they
that
still
thing
can
of
summon them.
Dorothy
Yeah,
and our friends and the Yellow Brick Road.
yeah, and a
It's
basket
still-
for a dog.
And it's still not relevant. That's not the right word, but it's still
It's still
in the
powerful.
public consciousness.
It's interesting because I said a few minutes ago that good children's fiction endures, and that's
Yes.
why Enid Blyton hasn't done well in recent years, because a lot of her stuff,
Hasn't
it was
stood the test of
popular, but
time.
it hasn't stood the test
Yeah.
of time, because a lot of it was very
The fact that they've continued to
rubbish.
adapt it and change it and find different levels and different nuances. Obviously the original books are quite simplistic.
I
I think
feel,
that helps make them more relevant.
yes, but I feel classic children's literature, they struggle to make
Hmm.
it relevant. You're talking about relevance. The Hardy Boys had a TV series recently, which I actually really enjoyed. But to make it enjoyable, they had to basically ignore most of the books.
Yeah,
Nancy
that's the
Drew,
problem.
they had a Nancy Drew TV series on the CW, and she was fighting ghosts. I'm like, what's this rubbish?
So I've been watching recently. There's a new Matlock. I don't know if you remember Matlock. Matlock was a 1980s
Copper?
detective type series where he was solving murders, and I think he was a lawyer or something, if I remember right. I think he was trying cases, and he was like a kind of old, an old white dude who sort of, jovial chap
Yeah.
who tried all these cases and everything. And it was a kind of light-hearted comedy drama type thing.
Is it a really serious TV show now?
No, so they've reimagined it, rebooted it, remade it, with Kathy Bates playing Matlock,
Huh?
right?
Right, okay.
And initially when I saw that, I was like, well, this is a terrible idea for a TV show. What are they playing at?
Uh-huh.
However, it's not really what you think. It's a bit of a Trojan horse,
Really?
because her character's name is just like his was. He was like, can't remember what his first name was. She's like Madeline Matlock or something in the new version. But it exists in a universe where Matlock was on TV. So she comes in to get, she's the kind of older lawyer who comes in to work at this firm. But she's like, oh yeah, Matlock, just like the TV show. And that's she, and you're like, oh, that's not what I thought this was going to be. It's not a complete, just a remake of the
Yeah.
original. It's with a spin. And it turns out that that's not even her name.
Right.
She's there to try and get justice for a dead daughter or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she took that name because her dead daughter loved the TV show Matlock.
That is so strange.
So
It's
it's basically taking the same idea of what the show was,
Yeah.
but just giving it all these levels. Now, I'm not saying that makes it great.
And-
I'm enjoying it so far.
Yes. So,
But-
Kathy Burke.
Kathy Bates. Kathy Burke was...
What you said?
was, specific.
Give me.
It's dead. I am smoking.
Sorry, Kathy
No, Kathy Bates, Misery Kathy Bates. Yes. So it's interesting how that they take these things and give them a new spin.
Right.
Now that worked. I did
I'm
not.
confused. Sorry, this is so silly.
Like I loved the original Equalizer with Edward Woodward.
It's so 80s though.
But I'm not. Couldn't get into the new version because it's too different.
What now if they rebooted? And this is a real deep cut, listeners. Sledgehammer. Do you not remember Sledgehammer?
I do vaguely, yes.
They could reboot that. It was like a spoof cop show. It was really, really fun and silly. Bring it back.
But they could because nobody would really remember it.
Okay, don't bring it back.
But I think that works. If something's really popular and really well known, it comes with its own dangers.
That's
not like the book.
No, it's not. But let me steer it back because Fame got a reboot.
Yeah, we'll have a quick chat about
Fame before we go. Then we'll get another cup of tea.
Fame. So, in addition to all these film versions and whatever else spawned on,
I never watched Fame, by the way.
Like every TV show, pretty much, certainly in like the 80s and 90s, I would say,
had a Wizard of Oz special.
Had a Wizard of Oz episode where something happened and they ended up in a kind of weird alternate reality.
Started off black and white and then it got colourful.
And there is an episode of Fame back in I think the first season, where Doris gets a bump on the head, and when she wakes up, she's basically in like the land of Oz, but it's in the school. So it's in the performing arts school, and everything's just basically redressed with shiny material.
Oh my lord,
and all
70s
like our classmates of the Tin Man and the Lion and all that kind of thing. And Debbie Allen's character, Lydia, who was the "You want fame? Well, fame first." You know what I mean? Banging her stick. I think
you're going to pay in sweat.
Yes, I think she was the witch, if I remember right.
Oh my goodness!
And it's one of those weird things where you're like, what are they doing? But yeah, that seems to be that's a legacy as well. It's this there's no place like home type thing. That's a phrase that is used even now.
Yes,
there's no place like
it
home.
Has entered the universal lexicon
in a way that
people don't associate with the Wizard of Oz.
So it's enduring, whether you like it.
It's not lived in my home.
And the jury is out on whether the film of Wicked will be any good. I am looking forward to seeing it.
I think they've cast brilliantly. It looks really well.
So hopefully, I enjoyed the show. Again, you can find bits of different things that you like, even if you don't like the other parts of it. Like there's people would maybe go, "Oh, not the Wizard of Oz. It's not on the telly again. Oh, I can't watch this again." Like with my Poseidon Adventure, when my mum goes, "This is not that one where they climb up the Christmas tree again," when I used to watch it all the time. It's a bit like that.
By the way, it's Christmas, you're going to watch it again.
You would go, "Oh, not the Wizard of Oz again." How many times have we seen that? Because it's ubiquitous with Christmas.
Oh, die, Dorothy. Go away.
But, you might not really have a great affinity for that, but you might have seen Wicked, or you might have read the books, or, so, yeah.
I like when source material comes into conflict with a spin-off and people start to see different things. Like when people watch Wizard of Oz now, the Wicked Witch of the West won't be as wicked.
That's interesting.
Yes, they'll take a look at her and see her differently now, and that's a result of Wicked.
And you can't really, because she's one note.
Yeah,
and you see
Dorothy is just like an idiot.
Yeah. So as Dorothy in the end, if you rewatch the Wizard of Oz, in the post-Wicked years, is Dorothy the innocent child?
Yeah,
that just was just trying to get home, or is she a more calculating,
a tool of propaganda at least
that ends up murdering at least two people?
I'm going to find out if Return to Oz is available to stream.
Oh, it definitely is. It's on Disney Plus.
Because I haven't seen it in years, and the trauma that I faced, I'll need to confront again.
Yes.
So I might look. Let's just see. Return to Oz. Our Wi-Fi is actually working in the library.
The best, most terrifying moment I think of the whole film is where Dorothy sneaks in to Princess Mombi's tower to get the key. Sure, it's a key she's trying to get, and she goes in, and Jean Marsh's head, her severed head, is in the glass case.
Yes.
When she opens it up, the eyes open.
Yes.
And she goes,
it's
terrifying.
Right, so this is the thing. We actually have Return to Oz, which is available on Prime Video for
Yes.
$9.99. However,
Yes.
underneath it, we've got another Return to Oz, which I think looks like a copyright-breaking production, but I can't...
Yes, well, they did lots of these things. They did lots of, like, cartoon versions of stuff.
Did they?
Yes.
And then you've got Alice in Wonderland, which we won't go into.
They did a sequel to the original, like The Wizard of Oz. They did an animated sequel to The Wizard of Oz back in, I'm going to say, the 70s with Liza Minnelli in it.
Oh my goodness, they
There's
have a
all those
film
things.
called Lion of Oz, starring Jason Priestley.
No, they don't.
They do.
Oh my goodness.
And it's about the Cowardly Lion, because obviously the breviary that he got from the wizard
Is there not?
didn't take.
Is there not one of the Wicked books that was about the lion?
Yes.
There's Wicked, there's Son of a Witch.
I mean, it's
There's-
diminishing returns. It's
I
diminishing
can't remember
returns.
what the other ones were called now. There's
They just-
definitely one.
Yeah.
Definitely one that's about the lion. Is it A Lion Among Men or
Oh, probably. I haven't read that
let me
one.
see. Sequels. Let's see. Son of a Witch, A Lion Among Men, and Out of Oz. So yeah. So in the 8 years after writing the original book, he didn't write anything. And in the next 6 years he wrote 3 sequels.
Also, he didn't write another book after Wicked.
Well,
in terms of like.
Aye, no, he probably did, but not a Wicked book.
Right, okay.
So it was obviously, I think, the popularity of the show.
I tend to remember he tried something similar to Wicked, where he was taking other characters from fairy tales.
Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister.
Yes, I
Yeah.
remember, because I saw that in the shops as well.
I don't know if that had any
And
grace.
the ugly stepsister wasn't that ugly, and she was misunderstood, and
He's
you
written a
know,
lot of books.
the wicked stepmother was mean and calculating, and Cinderella was
like Mirror Mirror,
Yeah.
Lost.
Cinderella
these
was
kind of things.
monstrous.
So I mean, he's got a good career out of that as well.
Oh, he has.
You know, so fair play to him.
Yeah,
That's
I
where we're lacking.
yes, I need to start writing, inverted fairies.
Well, there you
Tales.
go. Huh? I mean, with my wonderful imagination and your writing skills,
Yes,
we could be a hit.
yes.
Yes, we could reinterpret The Wizard of Oz in Cumbernauld.
Yes. That's all I'm saying.
with the big Tesco. Emerald City.
They're skipping up the Tesco at 3 in the morning.
Oh, bless. So yeah. So if it's your bag, go see Wicked when it comes out, and have a lovely time, and hopefully it will be enjoyable. And if that's not your cup of tea, if you like The Wizard of Oz, I'm sure it'll turn up
On Bank Holiday
it'll be
Monday
on
in
like Channel
December.
5 on Christmas Day.
Well, it probably
It
will be. Along with Little and Larger Pete's.
Oh yeah. The books are all available in our libraries.
Are
Plug
they
in
available in
there.
our libraries? I remember, as I said earlier, in my childhood, the children's library in Cumbernauld had the books, and they were nice bright
Yeah, I
covers.
mean, the
but
Wicked books I'm talking about.
no, I'm talking about the original.
No, we won't have the original books.
The
We'll
original
probably have
Wizard
the
of
original
Oz
Wizard of
books.
Oz, but we won't have like let's just pluck a random one out of the series. I mean, there's no chance. The chances of us having TikTok of Oz or Rinky Tink in Oz are probably quite slim.
I can't imagine they're even still being published.
I think you can still get them on Kindle and things like that.
Yeah, they'll be out of copyright now, so they'll just be like full
Probably.
of spelling errors and.
But yeah, we definitely have the Wicked books because we got brand new lovely copies in recently.
Oh, brilliant!
So there you go. So yeah, that is our Wicked/Oz special.
Yes, survived.
Really go off at too many tangents today. We kept it all kind of Oz
No, because we
related.
started at a tangent and then went away.
Sometimes we're
Like the Emerald City is the point we're trying to make.
we've been on the Yellow Brick Roads to
Yes.
Emerald City,
Yes.
and we have reached it because we have reached the
And
end.
now we're going down the concrete ramp to
And
ground floor.
We are. Ease on down the road.
Yes. Where the
So
bus stop
next
is.
month, hurrah! It'll be Christmas or January. Who knows?
Give us suggestions for a Christmas book that's been
My
turned into a
thinking
film.
for Christmas, which Kirky doesn't know anything about this, but I've kind of decided this is what we're doing in the same way that we just did today.
Yes.
We're going to do a Christmas Carol
All right,
Type.
of course. Yeah.
adaptation,
Mhm.
and we're going to look at Christmas Carol.
Alistair Sims is the best.
We're going to look at the different film versions. We're going to talk about Scrooge,
Yes.
which I love.
The classic Doctor Who
And
episode.
again, and all the different adaptations that come with that. And of course, the seminal Christmas Carol, which is the best version.
And we'll also
Ever.
have to talk about, is it Albert Finney that plays Scrooge, the way he
Yes.
plays Poirot?
Yes.
With that sort of, he plays him with like a hunchback and a snarly voice. My God.
So that's the
That
plan. I
actor.
think for our Christmas special, it will be a Muppet Christmas Carol, type Christmas Carol / Dickens special.
What the Dickens?
What the Dickens, indeed. So if we don't see you, well, we won't see you because it's all...
They're not seeing
We're
me.
not ever see you.
No.
But, you know, in our minds, have a lovely rest of November, December. It's very weird.
Yes.
And
This is a strange time, post-Halloween,
it is a very
between
strange
Christmas.
time, yes. So I imagine, going by the usual schedule, we probably would be dropped kind of...
By the time you listen to this, basically, Wicked will be on
Like
Amazon Prime.
3-4 days before Christmas.
Yeah.
We're usually about the 20-ish, 20-ish, whatever it is.
20 shit.
So yeah, so probably that's when it'll turn up. And until then, I guess...
I'm off to make a cup of tea. Enjoy yourselves,
yes.
folks.
Thank you very
Email
much. See you soon. Bye.